I know you lost the best ball, but how'd you play?
Consistently inconsistent. So, as Coach LaFleur said, he has never found a really great coach that's also a great golfer. So, I'm going to take that and run with that.
Shut up and sit down.
Inside Wisconsin is brought to you by Baycare Clinic, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, Rolltech, Festival Foods, Capital Credit Union, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, American Family Insurance, Miller Lite, and Aaron's Company.
What's up, Wisconsin? From the Inside Wisconsin studios, it's Trevor Thomas, John Anderson back in his studio. It was great to see you here in Green Bay, J.A.
Good to be home for the 6 hours I was there. 6 hours I was there. Maybe 5 when we came out, but good fun. Good to see some of my old friends that rolled in and treat you just like you were 14, right? And like, yeah, good, you're on TV.
The John Wisconsin crew was all here. That was so neat to see you four standing in a line, telling the stories. I mean, and it was funny.
Quiet. I like when you go, well, which one of you guys were in the flag, and they all just kind of sheepishly raise their hand.
My car. It was my car.
How many guys were in Pete Beats? Well, and then how about Pete? He's like, how much you been telling these people? So
that's exactly what he said. He's like, you told that story?
Yeah, and listen, there are others still that are just as sublimely stupid and hopefully interesting.
I love them. The John Wisconsin stories. Those are your stories from your childhood. And we get to hear another story of somebody local here in Northeast Wisconsin today, but his name is all over the map. You want to talk about a name on the map? Coach Steve Jones of Kimberly fame, but now going on to be a speaker and so on. J.A., this guy got it right.
Listen, I don't know. You hate to be defined by numbers in life because nobody goes, I just don't want to be a number. But if you want to give the quick resume version of the guy, right, so that we can get into the rest, is here's a guy that won 5 state championships. He coached for about a dozen years. He was 129-9. End of story. He's good, and we should probably listen to what he has to say.
Next. John, I've made the mistake of calling Jonathan Taylor a former Badger. Once a coach, always a coach. Yes, this is Coach Steve Jones of Kimberly fame. Coach, thanks for joining us at Inside Wisconsin.
Yeah, really grateful to be here with you guys today.
Real quick, Trevor, punch up the background there on Coach.
It looks awesome, doesn't it?
Real quick. Okay, now we can come back. Where are the plaques and the trophies and the dedication, honorary doctors of letters and all the things that, like, this is an office. If I had your hardware, my God, I wouldn't be able to sit down in the place. What are you doing with it all?
I think they're all on some shelf in my basement, John, to be honest with you. So I got a couple pictures on the wall about, on the side here with my son and my wife. But other than that, all the other stuff is kind of down in the basement, buried away.
So the question I always start with the coach is, just like I always want to know when great athletes, when did you know you were good at something? What is it that drew you to coaching and you went, wow, this is what I want to do?
That's a great question. I grew up with a dad who was, a severe alcoholic. So he wasn't around much. And I was a bit of an oops baby. So I had some older brothers who stepped up and stepped in my life as father figures. But to be honest with you, it was the coaches and the teachers throughout my journey, too, that made such a big impact on me. So kind of going through that and having such great role models in my life that were coaches, I knew that really was the path that I wanted to go down. And then when I started getting into it, I coached for a year out of college. I coached at UW Stevens Point after I was done playing, and I really started falling in love with that. And then went down to Baraboo and coached 3 varsity sports down there as an assistant, and really kind of just fell in love with the idea of having the opportunity to make an impact on kids like the coaches made an impact on me growing up.
So we make our fame, our glory comes as the head football coach. I want to dig on the other varsity sports. Like, I love that Jim Boeheim, I don't know if you knew this, at Syracuse, right? He was an assistant and he was the head golf coach. Like, what other things were you coaching besides football?
Yeah, so I was down in Baraboo. I was assistant track and field coach, assistant varsity basketball, and then obviously assistant football, and started as a defensive coordinator. And I thought I knew what I was doing, and got my butt kicked pretty good by the likes of like Pat Rice down in Wanakee and some of those guys. And it was a really humbling experience. But getting a chance to coach all those different sports, you really get to develop different relationships in different capacities. And then when I came up to Kimberly, I was actually the head track and field coach for about 3 or 4 years there as an assistant coach for football as well.
I can't wait for segment 2 when you and John dissect the triple jump and the high jump, because that's happening. That will happen.
Listen,
So
that's a 3-part show right there.
Love it.
You know.
You couldn't see it behind the scenes, but when you said track coach, John went, yes, right, literally right behind. When one sets out to coach, winning is fun. You have taken that to a completely absurd level in your career. What was that like, being so successful so fast and for so long?
A little bit of a double-edged sword, to be honest with you. Obviously, so many great memories that go along with the success that we all had, because as you guys know, isn't just one person. Had an amazing staff, amazing players, amazing community. But with that also comes the other edge of that sword, with kind of the expectations that go along with winning, and making sure that you win pretty enough and you win by enough points and some of that. So just trying to make sure that you maintain perspective of the purpose of coaching, and it's not always just about the wins and losses. They sure are fun, but it's about the opportunity to make an impact on the lives of the kids that you have the privilege to coach.
How do I get those kids, man? Because football numbers in a lot of places are down. You're not at a giant school where you were not at a giant school where you could just throw numbers at people. Like at some point you got to keep filling that well. And that starts, I think, sometimes before they get to 9, 10, 11, 12. How did I make sure that I had players? Because by the time you win that last championship, some of those kids were fifth graders, third graders.
Yeah, I think, as you guys know, with high school sports, everything starts with the youth program. So we had a great youth program full of great people that cared about kids. And we really viewed ourselves as a 6th grade through 12th grade program. We were a unified, hopefully, coaching staff. We tried to be, and we tried to take care of kids. And, we really made sure that we embraced all of them. And I almost feel like our football program, we tried to be like a utopia, right? Is that our program was for everybody, as long as you showed up and you're respectful and you live by, the standards that we all created. But, we needed everybody. We needed all shapes and sizes, big and small, skinny and round. And we really made sure that we showed kids that we cared and we loved them. One of our foundational values was family. Forget about me. I love you. And we made sure that every kid in our program, felt loved regardless of their role. And because it is a numbers game. You're right, John. You need great numbers in football because you need that scout team, and you need, the second and third stringers, because those kids quickly become starters throughout a season when you have to deal with injuries and adversity that you have to deal with throughout the year. So I think everything starts with the youth program up and making sure that everybody feels valued and within your program, regardless of their role.
Well, I'm going to go right at the legend. Like, could Vince Lombardi have been successful today? Because, right, he yelled and screamed and degraded people, and he practiced sometimes 3 times a day, and they hit and they went like that. And I think if we take him in a vacuum, boom, we move 1959 into 2022, it doesn't work. My thought is he was a smart enough guy to assimilate, but I don't know. Has he gone the way? Is that coaching style gone the way of the dodo? Can that work anymore?
Well, like you said, I'm sure he was a smart enough guy that he would have adapted, but I think he would have had to adapt it now. And that's kind of how we open up. So when I was coaching our youth coaches, that was kind of how I opened up, is that you can't necessarily coach the way that maybe you were coached when you were in 6th or 7th or 8th grade, for a lot of different reasons. Obviously for the health primarily, and most importantly for the health of our players, but also just to keep kids engaged, because there are so many more options now for kids to do different things, whether it's video games and Netflix, but also, you got fall baseball, you got volleyball, which is big in our community right now. You got soccer. Kids have options. And I think back, in the day that you're describing, maybe some of those options weren't present, and you could, kind of get all over kids and make them do up downs and make them run till they puke. And no, we're still had high standards and we practice hard, but you have to be able to adapt. Otherwise you don't thrive in today's game.
And that is about leadership, right? And so that's a good segue into where you're at now, Steve, in this idea of leadership. So here's Steve's book, The Twin Thieves. Truth be told, one of my best friends had this book. I shared with her that you were coming on the show, and she's like, take this and read it. And I'm like, this was last night. I can't read it this fast. But give us the synopsis of this book and really just your belief about leadership, because that's clearly where you're at now. We'll get to that.
Yeah. And really the book it's a parable. It's an easy read. And it's about a football team's journey through a transformational process of maybe a program that was a little based on fear of failure, fear of judgment, and how you rise above them. So the twin thieves are the fear of failure and the fear of judgment. And we call them twins because sometimes they get mixed up. There's a lot of people out there that say they're scared of failure, but really, when you ask a lot of questions around that, they're not even scared of the failure itself. They're scared of the judgment that comes after it. So the fear of failure and the fear of judgment, we call them twins because sometimes they get mixed up, and we call them thieves because if we allow them to, the twin thieves can rob us of a lot of different things in our life, taking positive risks, growth, potential. I could go on and on. So it's really a story about a team's journey to how you rise above those twin thieves and become the best version of yourself, both individually and collectively. So the story is about how great leaders build great teams and rise above the fear of failure and the fear of judgment.
Okay, so give me the Reader's Digest. How do I overcome that? How do I build? Because if you win a lot and it becomes a habit, it's because you have other habits that make you successful. How do I instill that's in the book and some of those tenets that you have there and put them into teenage kids?
Yeah, so not only was I a football coach, I was also able to teach 3 different leadership classes at our high school for the last 13 years. So I really got a great glimpse into what holds young leaders back, what they're fearful of, what excites them. So I got a lot of reps in starting to understand really what's the mindset of young leaders today. So able to inject a lot of that, both on the football end, but also in the classroom end, into our book. So I think one thing when you're looking at building a great team, I think the idea of psychological safety is at the root of it. And knowing that you can take a earned and positive risk and not get ridiculed and thrown out of the group, so to speak. So creating a team where you can be your authentic self, you can show up, you can be the best version of yourself. And even if you fail, you're still going to be accepted into that group.
The last episode of Inside Wisconsin was dedicated to mental health. John did a homecoming. We went to a Green Bay Rockers game. We raised some great funds and great awareness for a place called the Production Farm here in Northeast Wisconsin. And you mentioned something before we go to break there that I want to just really have you recap. You talked about psychological safety and the idea of Coach Lombardi and the yelling and the screaming and the kicking and the adaptation. But can you just quickly explain what psychological safety means? Because there's just too many stories of kids and even young adults just not feeling psychologically safe, and it ends in absolute travesty. Where are we at with that, Steve, and how do we fix it?
Yeah, again, I think one thing that made us successful in our program is our kids and our coaches, I believe, truly loved each other. Now, I talked about utopia before. We are far from perfect, right? Our program was far from perfect. But one thing I can say confidently is that our coaches and our players cared and loved for each other. And I think it created this unity and this bond that was, hard to break. And we talked a lot about how it wasn't about hating your opponent. It was about loving each other. So there was a quote, and I never want to compare sports to military because it's not even close, but the quote, I think you'll get the essence of it. A true soldier doesn't fight because they hate what's in front of them. A true soldier fights because they love what's behind them or beside them. And when you can create that psychological safety where those kids feel like they belong, because it is hardwired on us as human beings. Like, we want to feel like we are a valued member of a group. And when you can allow and create an environment where everyone, regardless of their role, feels like they are valued, and important in that tribe or that group, you're going to get the best version of themselves. So we did that by being intentional. We believed in servant leadership. So if you imagine a triangle, I think we keep coming back to old school, that kind of old school hierarchy in a high school program would be freshmen at the bottom of that triangle. Coaches and seniors are at the top, and freshmen, you pick up the pads, and freshmen, you clean the locker room. And what we've done is we've kind of flipped that paradigm on its head. And we believed in leadership training. So we would train our leaders, our seniors and our juniors, to be servants, and that their job was to serve the underclassmen. So our seniors would model that behavior. They would pick up the locker room. They would clean up the field. They would call a freshman on a Saturday morning and say, you know what, I'm going to come pick you up for breakfast on my dime. I'll be there in 15 minutes. They'd go up to a freshman, put their arm around him and say, you know what, I've been there before. This is really hard, but you'll get through this. Let me know if you need it. So those are true stories. And what's cool is when you create a culture like that, it cycles, in the good way, because it can cycle in the bad way really quick when you get into hazing and some of that other thing. So you become systematic in creating a culture of psychological safety. Another quick example is we would have Sunday night meetings, and our leadership council full of juniors and seniors, their job was to give shout outs, recognition, right? And we give little symbols of recognition, but they would stand in front of the team and they would give recognition to the scout team players, the kids that were getting beat up during the week, right? And they would celebrate some of the kids that would go unnoticed. And so it wasn't just talk, it was becoming systematic about creating a culture where everyone felt like they were valued and that they belonged.
Well, we covered the why in segment 1. That is completely out there, and it's phenomenal. In segment 2, though, we're going to have to talk about what you did, because what you accomplished is frankly absurd. That's next. We're back in a bit. Inside Wisconsin.
Inside Wisconsin is brought to you by Baycare Clinic, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, Rolltech, Festival Foods, Capital Credit Union, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, American Family Insurance, Miller Lite, and Aaron's Company.
Helpful critiques, ideas, great stories, people we should know, the great bar in your town, the fish fry you want to know, the fish boil, anything that you want to reach out to us with. We are happy. We are here. You can be the inputters. We're here to listen.
I made an egregious error, John. My wife and I went to Festival Foods, and There I was at the checkout. Our bill, not bragging, was $300 some bucks, 2 growing boys, and I forgot to scan my fuel rewards card from Festival Foods. Major mistake. I have not lived it down yet.
You can't go back into it. You can't you can always add your frequent flyer number later to your thing. We can't go back on that.
I don't know. I'll give it a shot, but it was a major oops, because that would have saved us. If I can't go back, I'll try. I'll let you all know. That would have been something like 30 cents a gallon off my gas, thanks to the Festival Fuel Rewards program. It was, I messed up. Don't mess up. Go to festfoods.com, look up the fuel rewards, and you can save money on your gas. Quick Trip and Festival Foods have partnered up as if there was any more reason for those 2 amazing organizations here in Wisconsin to get together. Now they're saving you money on your gas just because you need to eat.
Or the other thing you can do is, since I just was at the Nathan's famous International Hot Dog Eating Contest over the 4th, if you need to go buy like 900 hot dogs, or if you just think, you know what, I may sit down and have 60 or so, 65 in a serving for 10 minutes, you should go there and buy your hot dogs too.
And you'll save money on your gas. How do you not get sick watching that, by the way? I can't watch it.
I don't know.
Does it affect you?
No, it's just people eating. It's not, it's they're eating like, cavemen, but that's okay. It's, have you ever seen, like, what's the difference between that and just watching people attack a chicken wing on a regular Friday somewhere, right? It's not, you ever go to Merrick's and eat perch? People are eating with their hands, with your French fries and yeah. So come on.
Right.
Listen, we're all Neanderthals at some level. It's not a problem.
Hot dogs, Festival Foods, save gas, eat like a Neanderthal. There you go. You're welcome.
Bye.
We're back in between segments on Inside Wisconsin. It is the ever famous top 5 list of this episode. John, you and I talked in prep for this. We're going to take your top 5, put them on a Wisconsin Mount Rushmore of coaches here in the state of Wisconsin. So There's only 4 on Mount Rushmore. I get that, but we're adding a face. Who are your Wisconsin coaching Mount Rushmore heads?
So you did this just so we could fight, is what you did. You're just basically, you called me and you're like, hey, I have this idea. And I'm like, no, what you did is you're lighting the wick is what you want to do here. Okay. So that's fine. So who knows? I hope it's a cherry bomb and it just goes off. You never know. So top 5. Listen, I have to start with all the honorable mentions, right? Which is,
there's many,
which could be everybody from like, I don't know that Jim Hayes, the football coach at Green Bay Southwest at the time, makes it, but you never know. So like, I don't have a Bucks coach on my list, which means there's no Nelly, which means there's no Larry Costello, which means Budenholzer didn't make it, but he's kind of early on this. I thought about, okay, like, is it strictly, do they have to coach in Wisconsin? Because Bud Grant, the Vikings coach, right, born in Superior, a fantastic coach, he could be on there. Ready?
Ready.
Coaching Mount Rushmore at number 5, George Bamberger. The man made the Brewers relevant. They were terrible. He brought him in, Bambi's Bombers, and since then, boom, Coop, all those guys, the foundation of the World Series. Yount, Molitor, Gantner, Ted Simmons, all of them. He changed the franchise completely. So he's number 5.
Good, got it. Like it.
Number 4, Badger coach, Bob Johnson.
Who? I know. Don't quit the show, okay? Just don't. Just who's that? Why don't I? Who's
Badger
that?
Bob Johnson, the founder and the Wisconsin hockey.
Ooh,
4
I'm gonna get nailed for this.
Father of Mark Johnson, who's won a ton of them. Mark Johnson's not on my list either for all the coaching he's done. Badger Bob Johnson. Could be higher.
WCHA, right? That was when they were really, really good.
Back in the day.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, Adam.
I mean, it's amazing. I am so
What
you just
year
never
did
failed. I'm like a father. You never fail to disappoint me.
So,
Number 3.
Build me up, Dad.
3, Al McGuire.
Okay, good.
There's your basketball coach, right? Championship NCAA 1977 last game walk-off winner.
Yeah, I like it. I knew he was going to be on your list.
Number 2 is Barry Alvarez.
Yeah, it's good.
Who's on your list as well.
Yep.
So I've got 3 out of 4 on your list.
Keep going.
And now I'm going to get 4 out of 5 because number 1 obviously is Vince Lombardi.
Okay.
Because if you haven't gone to Vincent T. Lombardi Junior High School, then really have you actually lived? So that's it. You got Lombardi, Alvarez, Al McGuire, the great, legendary Hall of Fame Badger Bob Johnson. It's a great day for hockey.
Not good.
Also won a Stanley Cup. And, by the way, father of Mark Johnson.
Yeah.
And then George Bamberger.
Okay. So do you want to tell me what my list is now?
You have Lance.
Yeah. Just go in order. See if you can get them. Go one down. We already covered many of them. Who's my number 1?
Vince, Barry.
Yep.
I want to say you're going to go Bo 4.
Ooh, I went both 3.
Both 3. Okay. 4, I don't know. And you put Lance in as a courtesy at 5.
4 is Lance, and it's not a courtesy. That guy
totally a courtesy.
Whatever.
Totally, okay. I didn't know we were listing family friends, but that's great.
Okay. Number 4, Lance Leipold. 3, Bo Ryan. 2, Barry Alvarez. 1, Vince Lombardi. Who's my number 5? You mentioned him.
Well, I'm sure I mentioned every good coach. It won't be a track coach. It won't be Bud Grant. You wouldn't go there. You're not going to go Curly Lambeau.
No.
You're not going to go another basketball guy.
No.
How about we go Manuel de la Torre?
Yeah, that's it. That's my number 5. Who? What? No. Craig Counsell. Now, let me explain. The Brewers had not made it to the playoffs in my entire lifetime. I was born in 83. This whole idea of the World Series in 82, little lost on me. So Craig Counsell has helped make my Brewers fandom come to life. 08, 11, 13, 18, the national champ. I mean, the NLCS.
He's great.
He's my guy.
Terrific. He's on my list right there, but not quite there. But the man who literally built Wisconsin hockey is Bob Johnson.
Yep, and he was done in 1982. I rest my case, Your Honor. I'm out of jail. Thank you.
How does that get you out of jail?
Because it happened before 83. Are we not there yet? Everything that's happened before 1983, specifically in sports, I don't have a chance. I have enough time remembering the things that have happened when I'm alive.
Do you remember?
I do not have your brain.
Have you ever heard of Babe Ruth?
Oh, here we go.
Have you ever heard of Babe Ruth?
Yeah, learned about him in the Sandlot.
Who was number one on your list?
Vince Lombardi.
Did he coach before 1983?
Back to Steve Jones.
Back with Steve Jones on Inside Wisconsin. Now let's get inside some numbers, because it seems to me if you win 5 state championships and you win 70 games in a row and you are 129-9 in your coaching record, you're pretty good at your job. When did you realize kind of the methodology that you had was going to work, right? Because you have it in your mind, and now you got to put it into practice. When did you go, okay, yes, we're onto this, and this is the way to go about it?
Probably not until maybe the 3rd or 4th state championship, because I think you're always kind of second guessing yourself, right? And I was an assistant offense coordinator, and we were successful, under Coach Jorgensen. And when I got the job, my first year, my number one goal was to just not screw it up, right? So again, going back to the twin thieves, right? The fear of failure and the fear of judgment. And I didn't really dive into the leadership stuff. I really didn't maybe run it, the program, the way that maybe I believed in, because I didn't want to be the guy that started off 0-9 and getting chased out of town with pitchforks and fire. So I just kind of wanted to play it safe. And if I have some regrets, it was maybe didn't do things the way that I wanted to. And then you start getting comfortable in your own skin. And then I think you're always still second guessing yourself, like, okay, is this really sustainable? Is this really going to work? And then, I said maybe halfway through it, maybe not till the end, because you're always kind of thinking about, okay, how do you make it better? How do you improve it? Are you doing the right thing? And I think sometimes you're your worst critic as you're moving through it.
Fair, but there's a lot of coaches that never even get to state championship 1, let alone 2 or 3, and have that click. Does it ever dawn on you, Steve, that what you did is absolutely nuts? I mean, it's nuts. 5 state titles in a row is crazy town, no matter how much you live and breathe leadership. It's nuts. Did it ever cue to you that this is nuts? Because it's nuts.
Yeah, again, probably not to the end. And when I made my decision to make a pivot here in my life, and you have some conversations with your assistant coaches and you have some time to really reflect, I think that's when it probably hits you the most. But when you're in it, guys, it really is. It's the next thing. And how do you continue to evolve, and how do you find that competitive edge, and how do you make the tweak? But when you're all kind of done and you're looking back, what we all have, and again, it was a collective effort. What we all accomplished was pretty remarkable, especially when you're looking at trying to motivate and inspire young leaders and young players and 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, because a lot of feedback I would get from our parents was they couldn't believe that we could motivate these young kids to get out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning in the summer, but they couldn't even get those kids to mow the lawn. So to kind of keep them focused and inspired and battle that idea of complacency and entitlement, I think that's what I'm most proud of.
There's a weight that comes with that much winning, and you touched on that a little bit when you get to 60 or 50, 60, 70 wins like this. And they always say part of the reason Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak was so great, because at the time nobody really knew what a hitting streak was, and he got to 56. But every guy after that, right, they start counting at 30, and then the media's there, and it becomes this impossible thing, or at least it becomes something now that they just go, you just clear your head and go play, and it becomes really hard. How do you balance that, especially with teenagers? That we got 60, but 60. The weight of that thing can. How did it not eat you up?
Yeah, it was hard, to be honest with you. It was wearing throughout, because as I mentioned, sometimes the expectations became just ridiculous. I remember, our defense coordinator at the time, one Saturday morning at 5 a.m., he was filling up his gas tank before going to watch film for the next 7 hours in the office. And there was somebody from the community filling up their tank and said, defense didn't look very good last night. We gave up 14 points, it was 56-14 or whatever. And that community member was a little concerned about our defense. So, some of those things would wear on you. But I think probably the best things that we did as we move forward is, we addressed it. We put it out there. The elephant in the room, because I think early on, and again, looking back and things I could have done better, I kind of tried to keep it away and not talk about it in our meetings with our kids. And what I realized is everybody else was talking about it. Their parents were talking about it, their aunts and uncles, community, kids at school. So we need to talk about it. And we need to give our kids tools to handle it the best they could. And one of the best things we did was around language and perspective and how we viewed it. And we talked a lot about, pressures of privilege and where else would we rather be, and trying to reframe it the best we could. The difference between pressure and stress, and trying to give our kids tools to handle it effectively instead of trying to bury it somewhere was probably one of the best things we did.
I wish I would have heard that talk about no stress before I went bald, because this whole full coverage thing you two got going on, been a little stressed over here from time to time. When you win 5 state titles in a row and 70 straight games, and you go 129-9, there are a few phone calls that you have had to have taken over the years to say, hey, Steve, what you're doing is working. Come do that for us. Without being nosy, there had to have been some opportunities. Yeah, well, let's be nosy. Who'd you say no to, Steve? Because they called.
Yeah, I had some universities reach out about coaching, both at the head coaching level and being an assistant. I looked into them and entertained them a little bit. But as I mentioned earlier in our conversation, I grew up without a dad around. And I'm sure there's some college coaches that do a great job of being a dad and recruiting and being on the road and all those things. But as I look deeper into it, the recruiting seemed to be a lot. And I wanted to make sure I was around and being a good dad. So as alluring of the challenge of coaching college football, because it was a goal for a while for me, when I looked deeper into it, it just didn't look like the right fit for me at the time in my life.
Totally fair.
There is something I think still magical about, in your case, high school football, but high school athletics in a lot of ways, in that we love to watch the Packers, but that's, those are 1%ers, and even college guys are amazing. But high school football, that's the last really athletic experience a lot of them have. I mean, are you aware of that as you're taking, this is, for some kids, this is as good as it's going to be, and I need to make it as good as it's going to be?
Absolutely. And then we talked a lot about that with our players, and we recognize that as coaches. And you even listen to some pros, like Luke Kuechly, former linebacker for the Panthers, Super Bowl, all this other stuff. He would always go back to his favorite experiences were being back in high school, playing football on a Friday night underneath the lights with kids he grew up with, right? So understanding the privilege that we had as coaches to coach these young men, and what some people, and I would argue probably the best sport in America, and be able to use football as a platform to, and hopefully, grow these young men, and they leave our program better people. But it was a privilege that we as coaches definitely did not take lightly.
I worked in Oklahoma for a long time, where obviously high school football is crazy, right? Like Oklahoma had its first state tournament in football, in 1940s. Whereas it took most teams in the 70s before they did that. They used to vote like they did the AP and college ones. But I always found my favorite part of high school football was, if you weren't playing, then maybe you were a cheerleader. If you weren't a cheerleader, you were in the band. If you weren't in the band, you might be down cooking burgers in the snack shack, and parents were there. And the number of parents that show up that don't have a kid on the team is astonishing. And I wasn't there to see a run, but what kind of culture did you have around that the town, maybe everybody felt like they had a piece of this?
Yeah, and I think that's what's so unique about Friday Night Lights, right, is that it is a community event, and we try to do our best to create that, right? We had, corn roasts and all these things to try to bring the community in and get behind it. And it is fun. It is what high school sports are all about. And as you said, creating that atmosphere where it's not even parents that are excited, right? So one of my favorite parts about coaching at Kimberly is we'd be going through our pregame, and I think the gates would open at like 6:15, and they would open, and there would be people sprinting to their seats, and some of these people were in their 70s and 80s, and I call it sprinting, but they were shuffling pretty quickly to get to their seats, and I was always a little concerned that somebody was going to get hurt, but they were so excited to get to their spot that they've had for the last however long, 15, 20 years, and claim that spot. And that energy is always such an exciting part about high school football.
So one of the first gigs you mentioned to us after this whole high school football run was time to put it behind you and move on to the next phase of your life. You're a motivational speaker, you're a public speaker, and one of the first gigs is with the Green Bay Packers and Coach LaFleur. Way to jump in cannonball style, Coach. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, remarkable. My co-author, Lucas Jaden, and I were business partners now. He's unbelievable. Coaches some of the best coaches in America. So he works with Dave Roberts, who's the manager of the LA Dodgers. And so him and I were actually having a Zoom conversation, and I was expecting the call, but there was a number that popped on my phone from Green Bay, and sure enough, Coach LaFleur was on the other end, and I was shocked to have the opportunity he invited me down to Kohler to speak with the coaching staff and scouting and leadership down at Kohler. And what an unbelievable experience being a Wisconsin kid growing up and having one of the first speaking events, making this transition with Lucas to be with the Green Bay Packers. And, what we were talking about off the air is, success leaves clues. So I'm in the room with about 100 people, and up front, Coach LaFleur and Gudikis and Coach Murphy and, new special teams coach, they're up front, like scribbling down notes. And I'm kind of pinching myself like, okay, this is unbelievable. And then they were, there's a reason why the Packers are one of the best organizations, in the world, because they just treat you so well. Treated my wife and I unbelievably when we were down there. We spent about 2 days. Next day, got to golf Whistling Straits with Coach LaFleur and his wife, my wife and I, and played a little best ball. And we actually got beat by our wives, unfortunately. But it was unbelievable to get a chance to spend that much time with Coach LaFleur and that staff. They're unbelievable.
Well, first off, the bet should always be won before any ball's in the air. Okay, so that you always got to get favorable terms. That's the start to winning anything. You talk about you want to relax and not have any feel of failure. If you've won off the first tee because you're getting 4 aside, then you're all right.
That's right.
What'd you do when you had to tell the kids?
Tried to hold back the tears the best I could. That part was obviously the hardest. So I tried to let everybody know in one day. So I met with each of our staff members individually, and then at 3:00 when the bell rang, the kids met, and I think they were shocked. I didn't let on that was going to happen. I waited till after the banquet. I didn't want the banquet to be anything but the kids, and specifically the seniors. So. There were a lot of tears and lots of hugs, and it was difficult to let the kids know. But what I'm hoping down the road is, I talk a lot both in my leadership classes and in our football program about taking positive risks in your life, and maybe if they look back and they say, well, Coach Jones, put his his words into action and actually live by that. Hopefully that maybe they take some positive risks down the road too.
Although now he wants to speak and write, and I'm like, I'm 50. All I'm trying to do is stop writing and stop speaking. I'm like, and I can't go into football. I'm just saying, wow, that guy he's doing everything that I would like to leave behind. So God bless you.
Funny. I think you're glad you didn't decline that Coach LaFleur call. Like, I don't know this number. I'll send it a voicemail. Yeah. Too funny.
Yeah, right. I picked up a lot of spam calls recently because you just never know what that number is going to be. I used to always hit decline. So
right.
Yeah,
good. How are the solar panels in the house though? Is that great? And did you buy the extended warranty on your vehicle?
Oh man! All right, we'll wrap it up with Coach Steve Jones in just a bit. This has been a blast, Coach. Thanks for being here. We're back in a second. Inside Wisconsin.
Inside Wisconsin is brought to you by Baycare Clinic, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, Rolltech, Festival Foods, Capital Credit Union, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, American Family Insurance, Miller Lite, and Aaron's Company.
helpful critiques, ideas, great stories, people we should know, the great bar in your town, the fish fry you want to know, the fish boil, anything that you want to reach out to us with. We are happy. We are here. You can be the inputters. We're here to listen.
All right, J.A., you know that I work with the Pink Flamingos here. It's a nonprofit in Deep here. You've helped us raise some money in the past. And one of the main ways we generate funds is by selling Miller Lite there at the park. Each year, we keep track of all of the cases of beer that we go through. Mm-hmm. And if you want to talk about something that brings people together here in Wisconsin, it is summertime and Miller Lite.
Listen, as you know, you can get it anywhere. I'm a big fan. Like you can get it. I think you can get it at a grain elevator, which is it's the best use of grain that I can think of next to bread. Ben Franklin said it's our liquid bread, so I'm all down with that. I'll be honest. When they went white can, they sucked me back in totally. Yep. Now I'm like in, which is a monster thing. But listen, it's the dog days of summer in baseball. It is like that's what you should be doing now. Miller Lite, improve your summer.
There, you can have that marketing crew at Miller Lite.
Everything in summer improves with a Miller Lite.
I like it. Whether it's victory in a can, that's what you called it last time, or swing oil, or just improving your summer. Drink Miller Lite.
There you go.
Go to MillerLite.com/Inside Wisconsin to find delivery options near you, or you can pick up some Miller Lite pretty much anywhere they sell beer. It's Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. 96 calories and 3.2 carbs per 12 ounces. We are back inside Wisconsin. Trevor Thomas, John Anderson, and Coach Steve Jones. He went to 129-9. That's all you need to know. Kimberly High School, motivational speaker. Coach, this has been great. Thank you. All right, speaking of coaches, before we get to JA's lightning round here, I only have one today, John. So this is my lightning round, and then you can take it. And yeah. Okay. Coach, we've had Barry Alvarez, Coach Bo and Coach Will Ryan, Coach Greg and Coach Jeff Gard, Coach Dick Bennett, and now Coach Steve Jones. Are there names like those that you really looked to in your career that said, that is a guy or a gal that I need to model my beliefs and my coaching? You're a Wisconsin boy. We've had some success here. Who did you look up to when you were coming up the ranks?
Well, that Coach Alvarez name was something that I thought pretty highly of. Our offensive line coach and I'm biased, I think we had the best coaching staff in the state, but O-line coach Mike Verstegen played for Coach Alvarez. He was part of the first Rose Bowl. So I would pick his brain a lot about Coach Alvarez and what he learned from him as a player, and some of those big takeaways, and try to embed some of that stuff into our program, because obviously he's done such a great job. And then I think I had Coach John Mish. He was my coach in college and was such a great mentor to me, and I got a chance to coach with him for a year. He was always someone that I could go to and ask questions to and try to emulate some of the things that he did. And then I'm a believer of trying to just take bits and pieces of people and what they do in their program and what they do really well. So, anywhere from, like you said, Bo Ryan to, Paul Chris, to a lot of unbelievable coaches that we've had here at the college level. And then even at the high school level, before I mentioned guys like, Pat Rice and Dave Keel down at Homestead, and, Tom Taraska at Arrowhead. I could go on, but just trying to pick people's brains and figure out what worked for them and how you can tweak it and make it work in your program. So you got to be yourself, but I think you can also definitely take bits and pieces and try to emulate what great people do, because, we mentioned earlier, success leaves clues, and you got to try to learn and have that, develop that black belt mindset, but continue to have that white belt mindset along the way, and continue to be a learner.
I promise that was it. That was my only one.
Yeah, usually you wax poetic about, the streams and the trees and the lakes of Wisconsin, and so it's, he's a mess. We always tell people he's a Hallmark movie waiting to happen.
Love you too. Yeah.
Me, on the other hand, I just want to be a comedian somewhere in my life, but it hasn't worked out so far. So here we go. I'm going to ask you a bunch of these, and hopefully you won't tell me that I'm a nutbag. But it's the JA lightning round. Are you ready? You set?
I'm ready.
Here we go. How many people do you know, other people named Steve Jones?
0.
Really?
Personally?
Yeah.
I know 0 personally. On a personal level, I know 0. How many did you know?
I know Steve Jones, Steve Snapper Jones, that played in the ABA, right? The NBC's basketball guy for a long time, and I know Steve Jones, the runner, the marathon runner that won London and New York. I don't think maybe won Chicago. I don't remember. So there's a lot of them out there.
You can't keep up with this, Steve. This stuff just lives in there.
It is impressive. Your memory, John, is unbelievable.
How about this? Do you know anybody named Kimberly?
My sister-in-law.
There you go.
Kimberly. Okay.
All right, good. So we'll check that off. I like that. Give me your favorite offensive play call.
King right, power right.
And what is that going to? That sounds like I'm just handing it off and mashing people.
Basically, yep. It's a base gap scheme, down, kick out, wrap with the guard. But that was foundationally what our offense was built on, gap scheme, and we really believed in high school football in Wisconsin. You got to be able to run the ball in November if you're going to win a championship. So that was our base play. And
how many times did we run that play? I mean, I realize we can mess up formations and all those other things and dress up and look different, but how many times did I run that on a Friday?
I would say at least 15 to 20 times you would run it. And we got it in drives where if we got that thing humming, we would call it 4, 5, 6 times in a row.
Just until you can stop it. Give me your favorite NFL player. Anytime, mostly as a kid. I don't need it today.
I'd go with Jerry Rice growing up.
Okay, like him. How about a Packer?
Oof. Jordy Nelson.
Very good. Well, this falls in. Who is the fastest kid in your neighborhood?
I'd go with Pat Von Felt, my best friend growing up.
He was quick.
I think so, yeah. From what I remember, I don't know if he was or not, but in my brain he was. I was not very quick, John, so a lot of people were quicker than I was.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be incendiary speed. I just want to. I figure I always tell people when they think track and field, I'm like, everybody remembers who the fastest kid in their neighborhood was.
Yeah.
Trevor, who's the fastest kid in your neighborhood?
Ryan Kaufman, without a doubt.
Yeah, ours was Mark Hutter. It was just, you knew who the fastest kid was. If I give you a choice, hunt, fish, or golf?
Golf.
That's my man right there. You won 5 state championships. Of the 4 Green Bay public schools, West, Southwest, East, and Preble, how many state high school football championships do those 4 teams have?
0.
None. I think that is shocking that the city of Green Bay, with the Packers, has never had a state football champ. Or am I the only one that finds that absolutely?
Have they gotten close? Any of them over the years?
Southwest in the 11, I think in 2011, in the last decade, has gotten to a semifinal a couple of times.
Under Bryce Pop, I think.
Yeah, I think they did. Like Ashwaubenon's won them, right?
Yeah.
Here, all those, but never the city proper. And back in the old WISA days, right, when the Catholic schools had enough that they played separately, Premontre won some, but none that were none since then that I am I'm aware of. Okay, Whistling Straits. Since you brought it up, this is the last thing I'm going to ask. How'd you play? I know you lost the best ball, but how'd you play?
Consistently inconsistent. So, as Coach LaFleur said, he has never found a really great coach that's also a great golfer. So, I'm going to take that and run with that. So, I'll lose that excuse here in about a year, but that's what I'm going to lean on for the last 20 years.
Coach Jones, thanks for being here on Inside Wisconsin, man. We love that you are a Wisconsin guy. This show is dedicated to the people, the stories, and the patriotism of America's Dairyland. You fit that bill, and it's really awesome that you're now dedicating your life to helping grow the people here in Wisconsin. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys and appreciate what you guys do, and grateful to be here and spend a little time with you.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate it.
J.A., I'm a sponge with guys like that. I really appreciate all the leadership stuff in the book. I'm going to read it and coach my son, but I could listen to that for a really long time. That was really great with Coach Jones.
It's funny how, as one ages, and since we've established that, I'm older than you and life began in 1983, but how at one point I was in a spot and I'd listen to coaches and I'd go, I would have loved to have played for that guy or run for that guy. Yeah. And now as you get older, you're like, I would let my kid play for that guy.
Yeah,
Like,
I
you
would.
take yourself out of it. You're like, okay, I do not have the goods anymore, but I would let my kid play for that. But that is the most important place to kids to learn. Like that's the fundamental stage, and they can learn to love sports, or they can learn to dislike it, or it's hard to overcome that. And those are the people that literally grow our passion. I don't know anybody that doesn't remember, if they had some sport, who was their high school coach.
It's fun to talk about them. I have my coaches that I brought up on the show too. You have your coaches, and we're all inspired by those stories, and clearly Coach Jones today. So thanks for him for being here. Speaking of inspiring, John Wisconsin has inspired a new segment here on Inside Wisconsin. It is called Deeper Roots with Blaine's Farm and Fleet. It is the inner stories of here in the state of Wisconsin. We're going to travel the state, John, myself, and a team from Blaine's Farm and Fleet. At the end of the day, we're looking for the deep-rooted stories of Wisconsin. And so we kick it off today with the first episode of Deeper Roots, and it's actually about my deeper roots. John, you inspired me to share a little bit more about myself and kind of my deep roots and where I come from down there in the Jefferson-Johnson Creek area. And so thanks for always sharing your stories. And with your permission, the first episode of Deeper Roots. It's my story.
Listen, you don't need my permission. Like, if you look at the screens here, I noticed they're both exactly the same size, right? So the show is split. I'm just closer to my screen, so my head looks bigger, but I don't have any more in the show than you do, which is good because I'm tired of talking about myself. This will be great, whether it's your story or many others. And to me, this is sort of a fruition and help fostering what we've wanted all the time. Amen. Which is, sometimes we have great headliners, sometimes we have people that are lesser known. But it's people, and it's people from Wisconsin, and we love to tell their stories. So I look forward to watching this.
Farmers, brewers, hunters, packers, badgers, cheeseheads, neighbors. No matter what name we go by, we are bound together by our roots. These are the people, the stories, and the patriotism from inside Wisconsin. Welcome to Deeper Roots with Blaine's Farm and Fleet. Imagine the stories that could be told by an old man's hands. That's how I started the tribute I wrote when my grandfather, Merlin Whitty, passed away in 2019. His hands were insane. They looked just as you'd expect them to, with him being the factory worker and the farmer that he was, with a hint of a stud sheepshead player, because that was indeed him. My grandpa was someone to watch, someone for me to follow. He worked hard, and he played hard. He was committed to his roots, and all of us can relate to that. As we kick off Deeper Roots with Blaine's Farm and Fleet, we're excited to share the many inspirational and intriguing stories that exist across our great state. So when deciding where to begin, my grandpa, Merlin, seemed about as well-fitting as those work boots that he used to lace up each day. Enjoy the story of Merlin Whitty. We'll start by speaking with those who knew him best, another family with deep Wisconsin roots, the Detmans of Detman Dairy Farm. You can't tell the story of the Whittys without telling the story of the Detmans. And I really truly believe that, because that's all I remember is Grandpa working at Friskies and then coming to help you guys at night and on the weekends. And apparently there's a story that he took over combining for you so that this guy could be born. Is that true?
Actually, that is. It was a beautiful day, and one of those rare days in November that we were in t-shirts picking corn in the first week in November, which doesn't happen very often in Wisconsin. And I got the call. I said, we need to go to the hospital, and Merlin took over, and we found somebody to milk the cows that night, and away we went.
That's awesome. I think you guys know this, but he loved your farm just as much as you guys loved your farm. Is that fair to say?
Yes, he was. The boys, the younger generation, call it old school, but it didn't matter what we were doing or whatever. It was going to be done right, and it was going to be done to the benefit of everybody.
Mike, how old were you when you first remember Grandpa being there?
That's my whole life. Until Karen moved in here a few years ago, Merlin's been the only neighbor I've known.
Yeah, that's
well,
wild.
Merlin and your whole family, I should say.
Right.
So, Spent a lot of time in that house.
Grandma, you did? Yeah, me and you both.
Yeah.
How much of a dynamic do you remember just the families having? Like you said, Grandpa was, as long as you can remember, down there with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it was part of the family. I mean, your grandpa, as long as I can remember, Merlin was out here helping us. So whether it was running stuff around in the spring when we were planting, if he was bringing in some hay wagons for us in the summer, making hay, running, either hauling grain for us or running the combine, giving my dad a break.
So this tractor that's right here, this is the one that you said my grandpa drove a lot. This is definitely the tractor that I sat in with him.
I'm sure.
Right up on that. Now I don't fit, like my son would probably fit there just like I did when I was a kid, but
It looked bigger when you were younger, right?
yeah, it did. Listen to this. Hopefully you'll be able to hear this.
Hi, Trev. Grandpa calling. I got some bad news to tell you. Nobody got hurt or anything, but Tim Detman's milk parlor burned out this morning. They got the call about 4 o'clock, and they had to move cattle. I don't know. I didn't get a chance to go any place because I can't drive, so. But this is just the stuff I hear by being around people, you know, where I'm living and stuff, so. But they claim there's $500,000 damage to the milking parlor.
So he was clearly in the insurance business. He knew exactly how much damage he had. Not true, right? But that was kind of neat to.
Yeah, he kept up with it.
So the whole thing is called Deeper Roots, right? And we talk about how we build roots specifically here in Wisconsin, inside Wisconsin, along with Blaine's Farm and Fleet. It's all about the people, the stories, and what we call the patriotism of Wisconsin. What do these roots out here mean to you, Mike? You're 4th or 5th generation by now.
4th generation here on the farm.
Yeah.
You grow up on a farm, you grow up out in the country like this, and you didn't have, we weren't running to the movies all the time. We weren't running to each other's houses. Your next friend was a mile down the road, things like that. And so fun was where you made it. You grew up doing it. Of course, I've grown up raising these animals. Back when I was a kid, we had 70 cows, and got a little older, we had 150, and now we're 600. Friends and family will visit the farm, and I'll be talking about, that cow over there, she's number 6245, and she just had a calf here a month ago, and they're like, how do you know that just by looking across the barn? Well, you know them.
I'm really grateful.
Definitely, my pleasure.
We're excited to tell the story. So
Merlin was a part of our family too, so it was really a pleasure to participate.
Yeah,
I love it. I love
it. Was fun. Neat to see the old house, neat to see the barn. Man, roots matter. That's the whole reason we're doing this, right? Deeper Roots with Blaine's Farm and Fleet. This is probably from the fries, but I just stepped on a High Life can. No cars?
Looks like
Grandma always told us to go play in traffic. Here we are on her highway end, no offense. Can you hear that? There's a cow taking a giant leak right in the background. That's awesome. I used to hit, well, I shouldn't tell you that probably.
Golf balls?
Yep. Did you find some? I don't remember this being on the farm when I was a kid, Mike.
No, that's a new addition. New management,
New management. There it is. Episode 1 of Inside Wisconsin's Deeper Roots with Blaine's Farm and Fleet. Hey, remember to like us here on YouTube and click subscribe. Also, if you're listening to the podcast, leave us a 5-star review, would you? If you'd like to learn more about the Detmans, visit their Facebook page at facebook.com/Detman Dairy Farm. They do a great job. And of course, if you have a Deeper Roots story that you'd like us to share, fill out the form on the website. It's farmandfleet.com/Deeper Roots.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Inside Wisconsin is brought to you by Baycare Clinic, Blaine's Farm and Fleet, the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, Rolltech, Festival Foods, Capital Credit Union, North Star Mohican Casino Resort, American Family Insurance, Miller Lite, and Aaron's Company.
Shut up and sit down.